Hello, welcome to the topic Philosophy of Education, Meaning and Scope. Philosophy is a way of looking at life and the universe. It is a quest for the meaning of life or the existence of human being. The Greek word philos means love, and Sophia means theoretical wisdom. To put it short, philosophy is a quest for wisdom in order to make life more meaningful. It is an inquiry of the principles of being and an investigation of truth in relation to being. Knowledge is a process of knowing things and facts by making a somewhat accurate understanding of them. Wisdom is asking questions on how we know what we know and assessing better performance on actions and thoughts. In that way, philosophy tries to create meaning around the activities and life of a person by connecting it through knowledge. Thus, it provides a systematic worldview. As stated above, philosophy is a love for wisdom. A person who is seeking wisdom is important here, rather than a person who attains wisdom. At the same time, this wisdom is closely connected with the freedom of an individual. The idea of philosophy is intrinsically connected to the notion of freedom. An individual can enjoy freedom through the attainment of knowledge and wisdom. In other words, wisdom helps to segregate the kinds of knowledge that can help an individual to think about her or his freedom through rational thoughts. Wisdom points out knowledge that is useful in life from knowledge that is useless. So, a person can select what is useful for his or her betterment in life. Philosophy is also a reflecting process of our life and actions. In that way, it is an assessment of one's thought and actions. The self-reflection process is meant to enable one to refine their actions and thoughts. Philosophy investigates the possibility of a useful knowledge and the conditions that makes the knowledge useful. It also inquires the contents and implications of experience. Philosophy addresses the relation between experience, knowledge, and thought. Mainly, philosophy deals with the problems of reality, knowledge, value, and truth. The main branches of philosophy are natural philosophy, moral philosophy, and metaphysical philosophy. They are further divided into axiology, ethics, aesthetics, logic, and epistemology. Axiology is a study of value of things. What constitutes value is also an important and related question in axiology. Whether value is a fulfillment of desire or pleasure, or value is just a preference of a person, or is it a human interest or behavioral disposition, etc., are some of the issues within axiology. Different philosophers address these issues in different ways. Natural philosophy is a systematic study of nature and its diverse aspects. It intends to know the function as well as structure of all possible natural objects. This function and structure further necessitates the relation between different natural objects, including human beings. In the early modern period, natural philosophy was considered as equivalent to science. Moral philosophy is a principle on which all our moral judgments of the mundane days are based upon. It has close connection with ethics because moral judgments lead to ethical action. Moral requirements vary according to the standards of rationality of an individual. The aim of moral philosophy is to know the foundational principle on which our moral judgments are based. In moral philosophy, one always faces the question of what ought to do. Moral philosophy speaks about duties and values that are essential to people for improving their life. Metaphysical philosophy is the study of all visible and invisible reality. It is also inquisitive of what constitutes reality or the real. It is a study of the most fundamental nature of reality and being. While seeking for reality, metaphysics also defines what's beyond reality, or what are the unreal things and areas. Metaphysical philosophy is also known as ontology because it fundamentally asks the question of existence and the nature of existence. Ethics deals with the moral aspect of philosophy. As per Kant, the subject matter of ethics is the nature and content of principles that leads to a rational will or choice. Ethics determine the right and wrong of an action and behavior. Ethical judgment points out the values in human behavior. The kinds of things which are good or desirable can be determined through an ethical judgment. Aesthetics informs the artful and creative part of philosophy. It is the study of value in arts. Philosophy of art includes the issues of judgment of sense, taste, and emotional expressions. The ethics and aesthetics have a close relation in the theoretical level because each art form inherently represents some kind of value or use in it. Logic is the scientific and philosophical justification. Logic highly relies on the correct inference for each and every justification. It is a particular method of argumentation or reasoning. Logic inquires the principles that govern reliable inferences. Epistemology is the study of the theory of knowledge. It deals with the fundamental issue of how we know about reality and existence. It's a study of the scope, nature, and limits of human knowledge. The basic concern in epistemology is to distinguish true knowledge from false knowledge. True knowledge is adequate knowledge and false knowledge is inadequate knowledge. Indian philosophy. There exist many schools of intellectual traditions in Indian philosophy. These schools argue between each other and enrich their knowledge of life through these interactions. The main intellectual traditions in Indian philosophy are the Nyaya tradition, the Vaisheshika tradition, the Samkhya tradition, the Charvaka or Lokayata tradition, the Buddhist schools, the Jainas, and the skeptic school. Each tradition establishes themselves by critiquing and complementing the other existing traditions. Indian philosophy is considered as something that embedded within religion. As in Western philosophy, there are schools of rationalists in Indian philosophy too, but with different names such as the Nyaya, the Buddhist, etc. Nyaya tradition. The Nyaya school focuses on the epistemology of things and its philosophical explanations. The people in this school emphasize rational inquiry through a method called pramana, the means by which one obtains accurate and valid knowledge. The period of this tradition was from AD 150 to AD 975. The Navya Nyaya tradition evolved out of the voices that dissent with the Nyaya school. As the name indicates, the Navya Nyaya school deals with new Nyayas. It means they renovate the earlier Nyaya school by finding solutions for many of the criticisms of the Nyaya school. Vaisheshika tradition. The Vaisheshika tradition offers philosophical explanations for a variety of natural phenomena. It has close connection with the Nyaya tradition. It took many of the perspectives of the Nyaya tradition and developed them further. This tradition owes its epistemological and logical theories to the Nyaya tradition and develops metaphysical theories of its own. The period of this tradition is roughly from AD 100 to AD 990. Kannada is known as the main proponent of Vaisheshika tradition. Sankhya tradition. Sankhya school is an oldest metaphysical worldview. It combines the doctrines of Sankhya, the theory aspect, and yoga, the application aspect. It is a combination of both theory and practice. Sankhya theory divides things into two: things that are constituted of consciousness and that are unconscious. In Sankhya Darshana, knowledge of truth is acquired through three processes. They are Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Aptavakya. Pratyaksha is perception, Anumana is inference, and Aptavakya is the wise or time-tested words of learned persons. Lokayata tradition. The Lokayata tradition admits the existence of the Loka or world. This is a materialistic tradition which renounces the existence of a god. Because of this, Lokayata or Charvaka tradition is also known as Nastika. It is aesthetic and acquisitive. It is also known as Charvaka tradition. They believe in the pleasure and pain of life. Charvaka is believed to be the founder of this school. This tradition coexists with the Buddhist tradition in 500 BC. The Buddhist schools. Sri Buddha is the founder of the Buddhist intellectual tradition. The important intellectual traditions within the large Buddhist school of philosophy are the Nagarjuna tradition and Diganaga tradition. Nagarjuna. As per this school, all philosophical theories are empty of content. They critique the Pramana method of the Nyaya school. For this school, the rational inquiry can be possible only by exposing the incoherences within one's conceptions. The period of this school is from AD 100 to AD 600. Diganaga. The Diganagas were excellent logicians and idealists. They believed in Pramana theory as the correct method to defend philosophical inquiries. Yet they continuously argue and critique the Nyaya tradition. This school also exists from AD 100 to AD 990. The Jaina school. The Jaina school believes in tolerance, harmony, and rapprochement. They believe in pluralistic philosophy. They existed from AD 750 to AD 1290. Mahavira, a contemporary of Buddha, is believed as the founder of Jainism. This is a dualistic and atheistic tradition. It is dualistic because it believes in dual constituents such as matter and soul, motion and rest, space and time. It is atheistic because this tradition denies the existence of God. The skeptic school. This school critiques the Nyaya, Vaisheshika, the Buddhist, and the Jainist traditions. It indicates that this school came into existence only after the above mentioned schools. Skepticism is an attack on the possibility of knowledge. Western philosophy. In the Western context, philosophy doesn't have a large number of schools as that of in India. The tradition there is to derive from or critique the existing canon of philosophy. So, one can easily find a chronological order in Western philosophy that starts from Confucius, Aristotle, Plato, and extends up to the contemporary period of Deleuze and Michel Foucault. Western philosophy is considered as a science that segregates itself from religion. Aristotle defines philosophy as a science which discusses the real nature of supernatural thought. Kant regards philosophy as the science and criticism of cognition, the inclination to truth and a subject. Here, subject is a person to grasp the truth, is central in many of the Western traditions. There is also an imagination of absolute truth. Plato defines knowledge as justified true belief. In this, one needs a belief as well as a justification for the belief. The method of philosophy is in agreement with the nature of truth. The immediate objective of our experience is the physical world, and the way we know that world is through our sensory organs. So the method that philosophy uses to grasp the truth in the world depends upon an individual's conception about it. The iconic figures in Western philosophy are Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Rousseau, Descartes, Hume, Locke, Hegel, and Immanuel Kant. The main schools of thought in Western philosophy are skepticism, agnosticism, empiricism, and rationalism. Skepticism. In this tradition, one doubts everything, including the validity of thought. Skepticism starts with Descartes, and later Kant develops this concept further. Here, skepticism is not merely doubt or disbelief in everything. It's an attempt to become aware of, doubting all preconceptions or pre-given knowledge. The already given knowledge is validated through a series of processes and finally ends in absolute certainty regarding the nature of reality. Agnosticism. In this tradition, knowledge of reality is impossible to achieve. In other words, we have no means or tools to know and validate reality. Agnosticism doubts the beginning as well as the end. If skeptics doubt everything, agnost doubts the chance of having any knowledge of everything. They believe that man knows only the appearance of a thing and not the real thing. Empiricism. Empiricist treats mind as a blank slate where one can write upon through experiencing the world. It is based on sense experience. Here, the source of knowledge is through senses and not through mind or thought. Here, knowledge is a posteriori or dependent on experience of sense perceptions. But one cannot always rely on sense experience because it depends upon the context and the feelings of the person who uses her or his senses to grasp knowledge. Empiricism is said to be the forerunner of skepticism. Rationalism. As the name indicates, rationalism believes in reason to validate the truth in any knowledge. Here, knowledge is a priori or completely independent of experience. In this tradition, knower or the knowing subject has a central role rather than the knowledge. The knower or the knowing subject acquires certain knowledge by using her or his intellectual and rational thoughts or mind. Here, knowledge is self-evident, universal, and contains necessary truths. Philosophy of education. From the ancient period itself, education is seen as an important tool for the betterment of an individual. The goal of education is the all-round promotion and development of life. Through proper education, a person acquires an opportunity to improve her or his character, action, knowledge, and thought. In other words, he or she acquires certain skills that are essential to live in the world and to relate with others. Thus, philosophy and education are interlinked within their goal in improving the human life. What is meant by education is different in different situations. For instance, an agricultural laborer has possessed a well-equipped knowledge in terms of the quality of soil, fertilizers, seeds, the seasons suitable for sowing and reaping, etc. In the ancient times, there had not been a differentiation between this kind of education and the modern ways of learning through books and other materials from formal schools. So, one can achieve knowledge and education from different life situations. One can also achieve this from the walled space of school. The former type of education is informal education, and the latter is formal education. In spite of acquiring education from a life situation or from a formal institution such as school or Gurukula, it helps an individual to live in a better way. While gathering knowledge from these diverse situations, an individual has the capacity to process the given or acquired knowledge. By acquiring skills and knowledge, an individual becomes capable enough to pursue her or his goals. They become responsible and autonomous citizens in doing their duties and preserving their rights. They will also be capable of taking independent and wise decisions. John Dewey, the famous educational philosopher, defines education as a means for the social continuity of life. Education is the dynamic side of philosophy. It is the practical means to impart philosophy. Education is a set of techniques for imparting knowledge and skill. Philosophy is the foundation to vitalize these goals of education. Philosophy defines what is worth living, and education prepares one for that. The goals of education can be summarized as follows: transmission of knowledge, foster reasoning skills, develop social responsibility in an individual, to empower an individual in dealing with issues and changes, personal development, good citizenship. In short, education helps one to assess and validate one's own values and beliefs. If philosophy is seen as a quest for truth, philosophy of education is a method or approach to maintain the quest for truth. Through this method, an individual can set certain norms to measure up on their own. This could be through an upward mobility in terms of economic benefit or better job opportunity. This could also be through a refinement of one's own thought or action. The great philosophers of all times have also been great educators. The ancient sages in India were also educational philosophers. A number of philosophers define the goals of education and the perspectives on education differently. For instance, Paulo Freire, the Brazilian educational philosopher, critiques the approach of seeing education as a knowledge bank where students can come and take whatever knowledge they want. He believes in the ability of a student to bring or develop his or her own knowledge from life situations and question the knowledge given by a teacher with this gathered and processed knowledge. Another philosopher, John Dewey, also believes that students should be involved in real life tasks and responsibilities out of which they find the required knowledge to live and let live. Both Freire and Dewey believe in the philosophy of experiential education. Plato and Aristotle believe in masters of educators who have the responsibility to keep deep knowledge. The masters should also show enough care for the well-being of the one whom they teach or work with. Here also, Knowledge evolves not merely from teaching but equally from questioning. So, interaction is an important tool in the exchange of knowledge. Let me summarize the major ideas we discussed so far. In this unit, the main thrust is to know about philosophy in order to understand the meaning and scope of philosophy in education. Philosophy is a quest for wisdom and knowledge. This requirement helps an individual to improve her or his life in a more meaningful way. Philosophy provides a systematic or universal worldview. The idea of philosophy is also connected to the idea of freedom of human being. It is a self-reflecting process of one's action and thought. The main branches of philosophy are natural philosophy, moral philosophy, and metaphysical philosophy. They were further divided into ethics, logics, aesthetics, and epistemology. Multiple schools exist in Indian philosophy. They argue among themselves and also derive from each other. In West, the tradition of philosophy is to derive from or critique the existing tradition in a chronological order. The main intellectual traditions in Indian philosophy are the Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Samkhya, Charvaka, or Lokayata, the Buddhist schools, the Jainas, and the skeptic school. The main schools of thought in Western philosophy are skepticism, agnosticism, empiricism, and rationalism. Philosophy of education provides certain method or tools to an individual through the process of learning. This learning enables an individual to discipline and reorder oneself. Now, you can try to answer a few questions given here. What are the important goals of education? What are the different schools of thought in Indian philosophy? Write briefly on the different thoughts of Western philosophy. What are the differences between Indian philosophy and Western philosophy? Why philosophy is important in the life of a person? Why Lokayata tradition is known as Nastic tradition? Let me suggest you a list of books for your reference. Key concepts in the philosophy of education, Winch, Christopher, and Ginchel, John. London, Routledge. Democracy and Education, An Introduction to the Philosophy of Education, John Dewey, 2004, New Delhi, Akar Books. Hope that you have enjoyed this session. We can meet again with another topic. Till then, take care.